This question says, we don't have a very good process for continually filling our leadership pipeline with emerging leaders. What's the best way to get started in addressing this problem? Well, it's a great question because there's a couple of levels here. We could talk about leadership pipeline at any stage. Sometimes people want to think about succession planning, and all they really want to think about is how we fill the top spots. And that is super important, but it's not enough. We really need to be thinking pipeline all the way through, start to end. I love the way the question was framed in that regard. And so I want to talk about two pieces of this. The first one is that emerging leader. There's a country song that says, who's going to fill their shoes? And that's the question. Who's going to be the people that are going to take the frontline leadership roles that, you know, they've never been leaders and now they're going to be leaders? Most people would call emerging leaders. How do we do that? So I want to give you a couple of ideas there, and then I want to talk about what do we do with those brand new frontline leaders before I'm done. So the first thing is we got to get really clear about what we want those frontline leaders to do. What is the expectation of them? What do we want them to, how do we want them to lead? What behaviors do we want them to exhibit? That's because if we're going to try to basically recruit or look for people to move into those spots, we want to look for matches to start with. Now, anyone who's an individual contributor making the jump to being a leader, it is hard. In many cases, I think it is the hardest job in our career to move from being an individual contributor, probably a very good one, to becoming a leader for the first time. So we really need to make sure that we're going to give people skills, and I'll talk about that in a second, but we really want to have a match. And we want these people who we might call emerging leaders to identify themselves and say, hey, I want to do that. Too often people say, I want to be the supervisor only because they think that's what you're supposed to do, or that's the only way they can make more money. Now, what we really need to do is make sure that before they make that move, they know what they're getting into and they're ready to buy into it. So we want to set clear expectations about what the job is and help them know what that is. And then we want to start asking people what their career goals are. And so we basically want to be proactive about looking for folks, helping them selecting them, recruiting in some ways. I think we want to market this. Now, some people say, well, I don't want to talk about that because I don't want to raise people's hopes. I don't want to think, well, we're going to tap them and then they don't get the job and then they're all upset. Well, that's a risk. But if we're really clear with people about why we're having this conversation and what we're doing and why we want to engage them, I don't think the risk is as big as you might think. Plus, remember always that leadership isn't a position, it's an action. So if we're actively trying to get people who are interested in being emerging leaders, it's not just about filling a spot, it's about helping people build skills, change their perspective so they see things differently, so they're more successful. Man, that's where it's at, okay? Now, so that answers that question in part. But I have a soft spot, as some of you might know, in my heart for the new leader, the first-time leader, the frontline leader. I co-wrote with Guy Harris a book called From Bud to Boss, and we wrote it for those people who are in their first leadership job. They were a peer last week, and next week they're doing performance reviews. And so, man, if you are thinking pipeline and you're thinking from the beginning and not just at the top, really think about how you're going to engage and support and grow those first line, front line, first level leaders. Because, man, that's where the biggest and greatest leverage in your organization is. They are the people that are the face of the organization to the largest group of others. And if we put them in a job and don't give them the chance to be successful, they probably won't be as successful as they could be. They'll figure out something. It might not be what you really want them to do. And the longer they do it in a less than optimum way, the harder it will be to change their habit, because that's exactly what they're building, is a habit. You've tried to change a habit, right? It's hard. And so the more that we can be thinking about leadership pipeline, I love the question. Again, leadership pipeline is a great way to think about it.